My dad is a transmigrator. He holds socialist core values and insists on practicing monogamy. One day, the Empress Dowager, for some inexplicable reason, insisted on forcing a concubine on him. Ha, that old witch. Did she think my dad would indulge her?
Minister Shen, please accept the decree.
I can't accept it. The vinegar jar at home tips over too easily. For the fire safety of the imperial city, I cannot take this person.
Lord Shen, this is a gracious favor from Her Majesty the Empress Dowager. The Cui family is a prestigious clan. Miss Cui Wan is well educated and refined. She has come to help the Shen family flourish with descendants.
See that little meatball at the gate? That is my daughter. Oh dear, if another little one comes along. Do you want me to turn this chancellery into a mahjong table?
This is defying an imperial decree, punishable by beheading.
Beheading? Would the Empress Dowager bear to kill me if I die? Who will build her gardens? Who will sort out the Emperor's messy accounts? Eunuch Wang, go back and tell the Empress Dowager, if I, Shen Shixing, ever take a concubine in this life, it must mean my brain's been kicked by a donkey.
Wang Fu was so furious he trembled all over. He pointed at my dad, stammering you for a long while, slammed the imperial decree onto the offering table, and turned to leave.
Come on, Dad will take you to buy candied hawthorn.
Dad, if Mom knew you almost got another wife, would she come storming back from Zhongnan? Ah, if only your mother could come storming back.
Too bad she is busy with the early stages of the women's liberation movement. Too tied up to look after us too.
But not long after, trouble came knocking. The Empress Dowager sent the person directly. A beauty stepped down. That was Cui Wan. The Empress Dowager wanted to use marriage ties to bind my dad, an isolated minister, to her war chariot.
The Empress Dowager's decree is hard to defy. Cui Wan seeks no formal status, only to serve by your side, my lord,
and fulfill filial duties on behalf of my sister. Dad, she's using public opinion to corner us. She's a real pro at this, way sharper than that blockhead Wang Fu.
Nong Nong, go bring out Big Yellow.
I scurried on my short legs to the back courtyard. Before long, I came back leading Big Yellow, teeth bared and snarling.
Miss Cui, this dog has a quirk. He doesn't bite, but he can sniff out what's in a person's heart, those with crooked intentions or carrying the stench of scheming. He just loves to circle around them, a noble lady of your standing. If this beast catches a whiff of something amiss, I'd have a hard time explaining it away.
Though Cui Wan struggled to maintain her poise, her grip on the handkerchief tightened.
If this is Lord Shen's beloved dog, surely it understands human nature. I shall go feed it now, as a gesture of sincerity.
Big Yellow lunged forward suddenly, blasting a puff of hot breath.
Oh dear, Miss Cui, watch out. He's especially sensitive to those with ill intent.
A flash of venom flickered in Cui Wan's eyes. Then she suddenly turned toward me.
So this must be Miss Linger. How adorable. Big sister has some candy here. Would you like some?
I stared at the sugared candy in her hand, sneering inwardly. Big sister, why does this candy smell like rat poison? Dad says never take stuff from strangers, or you'll end up rolling your eyes back.
What nonsense are you spouting, child?
Guilt-ridden. She was scared off, but my dad grew even more anxious. He paced back and forth in the study, his eyes no longer holding Jess, but deep, deep weariness.
Nong Nong. That outburst of yours today sure felt good, but it has pushed us right to the edge of a cliff. The Cui family won't let this go. That Cui Wan is deeply cunning.
What is there to be afraid of? Aren't you the smartest mind in the Great Liang dynasty?
What damn good is being smart? Nong Nong. In the world your old man came from, people didn't have to kneel. I don't want you kneeling so long that your knees can't straighten anymore. But this world runs on power and influence, on social maneuvering, on devouring people without spitting out the bones. My way of doing things is alien here. Back in your old man's hometown, two people were together because they loved each other, not for family interests, and certainly not just to have children. Every person was an independent individual. No one was subordinate to anyone else.
Dad, you're missing Mom, aren't you?
Yeah, your mother was the one who understood me best in this world. If it weren't for your mother back then, I'd have quit this damn job long ago and taken you to be street loafers.
Dad, why is the Empress Dowager so determined to plant someone on you?
Because I don't take bribes, I don't join factions, and I only heed the Emperor's orders. The Empress Dowager feels she can't control me, that Cui Wan is the spy she has planted.
Then what do we do?
Since they refuse to play fair, they can't blame me for using a dimensionality strike. Nong Nong, starting tomorrow, our household is going to undergo corporate-style reform.
The next day, my old man called in sick. He posted a large sheet of red paper in the residence. Shen Household Management Regulations, Trial Edition. The contents were bizarre. For instance, non-immediate family members entering the residence had to pay a 500-page deposit. He also implemented a bottom-ranking elimination system, dismissing the lowest-performing servants each month. The most ruthless part was, he set up a security checkpoint at the entrance, or specifically, to check if anyone was carrying contraband, custom poisons, voodoo dolls, and aphrodisiac incense. This isn't guarding against a concubine, it is practically guarding against thieves. The Cui family hasn't given up. The Empress Dowager has stepped in directly. An oral decree came from the palace, summoning my father to a banquet, ostensibly to admire the flowers. But in truth, it was a trap. The Empress Dowager specifically requested I come along.
Nong Nong, remember this. Once inside the palace, speak as little as possible. Eat more instead. If anyone asks you something, just play dumb.
Don't worry, Dad. Playing dumb is my specialty. Once we arrived at the palace, the atmosphere was indeed oppressive. All the civil and military officials were present. The Empress Dowager sat behind a beaded curtain, with the 10-year-old young emperor beside her. Cui Wan was also there, seated below the Empress Dowager, her eyes rimmed red. After 3 rounds of wine, the Empress Dowager spoke up.
Minister Shen, we have heard you keep a vicious dog at home, which frightened the young lady of the Cui family quite badly.
In response, Your Majesty, this humble subject's household is poor and can only rely on a dog to guard the home. The dog lacks proper manners. This subject will have it stewed later.
Minister Shen, your constant evasions. Do you harbor some discontent with us?
This humble subject would not dare. This subject merely feels that, as Minister of Revenue, toiling day and night over the national treasury, I truly lack the energy to deal with trivial household matters.
Minister Shen, your words are mistaken. Cultivate oneself, regulate the family, govern the state, bring peace to all under heaven. If you cannot even regulate your own family, how can you speak of governing the state? Taking a concubine is a matter of common practice. How is it that for Minister Shen, it becomes a trivial matter?
Prime Minister Cui speaks rightly. If one is to regulate the family, efficiency is key. This subject has recently been implementing a new method in the Ministry of Revenue called KPI assessment, that is, Key Performance Indicators. This subject believes this method is also suitable for the household. My wife, Lady Jiang, is an outstanding manager, proven through years of assessment. She keeps the Shen household in perfect order and even generates economic benefits. If Lady Cui wishes to enter our household, by rule, she must first complete a probationary period. The probationary period is 3 months. During this time, she will be assessed on laundry, cooking, and childcare, as well as farming and feeding pigs, all manner of skills. If she fails to meet the standards, then she can only be eliminated.
Ha ha ha.
Absurd. Cui Wan is a daughter of noble birth. How could she perform such menial tasks?
If she cannot do them, then what is she coming to my home for? To be kept as a decorative vase? I beg your pardon. My household has no need of vases. We need people who work.
This is sophistry. Nonsense.
This is economics. If the input-output ratio is unreasonable, I won't make this deal. Your Majesty, wouldn't you agree?
Minister Shen speaks reason. Our Imperial Treasury also has no spare coin to keep idle hands.
The Empress Dowager's face darkened like the bottom of a pot. The banquet ended on a sour note, but my father did not win. The next day, Cui Wan was still carried by a sedan chair into a side courtyard of our home. The Empress Dowager's reasoning was, since Minister Shen demands an assessment, then let Cui Wan undergo the probation. This time, Cui Wan began playing dirty. Every day, she found new ways to tip the servants. She set up a porridge stall outside the manor gate, distributing porridge as an act of charity. She told everyone she met.
Minister Shen is incorruptible. This money I raised by selling off my dowry.
Father, she is buying people's hearts.
I know. She is forcing me, trying to crush me with public opinion.
So what are you going to do?
Since he wants to play the great philanthropist, let's give him exactly what he wants. Nong Nong, go and invite every single beggar gang in the entire city.
No problem, Dad.
What is going on here?
Everyone. I heard that Miss Cui is generous and charitable, so I've specially invited you all to come and receive some money. Miss Cui has said that she has plenty of dowry, and everyone who comes gets a share. 10 taels for each person.
The beggars roared with cheers and surged forward. I don't have that much money.
Oh dear, Miss Cui. How can you go back on your word? Just moments ago, you said you wanted to build up good karma for yourself. If you can't produce the money, aren't you just deceiving the whole community?
In the chaos, the dignity he usually held so high above everyone was shattered to pieces at that moment. He fled back to his courtyard in utter disarray, even losing one of his shoes along the way. If you want to play the saint, you have to pay the price. Yet Cui Wan still hadn't given up. He began loitering outside my father's study. My father deliberately placed some forged account books in a conspicuous spot. They recorded evidence of his supposed embezzlement and bribery. Cui Wan took the bait just as expected. Within a couple of days, I saw him sneak into the study and copy down those account books. My father was hiding in the shadows, holding a tube-like thing called a telescope. He watched Cui Wan's retreating figure, grinning like an old fox. But if he hands those over to the Empress Dowager, won't you be finished?
Silly girl. Those account books are written in double-entry bookkeeping, and I've also encrypted them. I used Arabic numerals that only I understand. Even if he copied them, they'll be gibberish to him. And besides, the content in them.
I didn't understand what Dad was smirking about, but I knew Cui Wan was in for it. Sure enough, 3 days later, the imperial court erupted. The censorate impeached my father for embezzling a huge sum. The evidence was the ledger Cui Wan had handed over. The Empress Dowager was furious. She ordered a thorough investigation. Officers from the Court of Judicial Review stormed into our home. They took my father away. Of course I wasn't scared, because as they arrested him, I saw him flash me a peace sign behind his back. My father was thrown into the imperial prison. Cui Wan finally showed her true colors.
All of this is ill-gotten goods. It must be confiscated.
Auntie Cui, aren't you afraid my father will come back?
Come back. No one who enters the imperial prison ever walks out alive. Shen Ling, from now on, I'm in charge of the Shen household. If you behave yourself, I might just spare you some scraps to eat. And slaughter that beast for me too.
Mama. Hey.
My dear, did they mistreat you?
No, Dad called this fishing enforcement.
That old rascal and his convoluted schemes. Where is he?
Eating prison slop in the imperial jail. Hey.
So you're the one who insisted on becoming my old Shen's concubine. Cui Wan.
The Empress Dowager decreed this marriage.
Decree my foot. This is the deed to my house. It's in my name. Shen Shixing married into my family as a live-in son-in-law. He has no right to take a concubine. Understand?
Of course, it was a fake, but my mother's presence was so overwhelming, no one dared question it.
This money's enough to cover that outfit you're wearing. Take your people and get out.
You dare humiliate me. I'll report this to the Empress Dowager.
Go ahead, and while you're at it, tell Her Majesty that if the silver the Jiang family has donated to the national treasury these past years dries up, she can forget about building that garden of eternal longevity.
After Mother dealt with that mess, she took me to the Court of Judicial Review.
Sister-in-law, what brings you here? This is against protocol.
Rules are dead, but people are alive. I've come to see that prisoner of mine. Old Shen.
My dear wife, you finally made it. The food in this prison is awful. They don't even use salt.
Shen Shixing, you've really outdone yourself, daring to flirt around behind my back.
Ouch, I've been wronged. It was an act of God. I am truly innocent. My heart and body belong only to you.
All right, enough of your smooth talk. How did the matter go?
It is done. The evidence of the Cui family's corruption and the route map of their smuggling with foreign enemies. It is all here. But this is just the appetizer. The real masterstroke is this. These are the Palace Gate access logs and a big data analysis report on the Imperial Medical Bureau's medicinal herb consumption. Cui Wan tried to frame me, but I used science. I pulled the Palace Gate entry and exit records from the past 3 months and discovered that the times Imperial Guard Commander Wei Xiao entered the palace and the times Cui Wan was in the palace attending to the Empress Dowager overlapped on 24 occasions, and all were near the secluded West Garden. I also checked the Imperial Medical Bureau's discarded dregs records. In the last 3 months, the palace's consumption of miscarriage prevention herbs has increased by 30% compared to the same period in previous years. Yet none of the palace consorts have announced any happy news recently. Cross-referencing all the data leads to only one conclusion. Cui Wan is pregnant.
Whose child is it?
Based on Wei Xiao's duty rosters and Cui Wan's movements, aside from His Majesty, the only one with the opportunity is the Empress Dowager's own nephew, Wei Xiao.
The Empress Dowager's niece is pregnant with the Empress Dowager's nephew's child, yet they tried to pin it on my father. The next day, my father was brought in for interrogation. The Empress Dowager presided in person, determined to convict my father.
Shen Shixing, the evidence of your corruption is irrefutable. What do you have to say for yourself?
Your Majesty, this subject is wrongfully accused. Those ledgers were actually the outline for a novel this subject was writing.
What utter nonsense. Those files clearly record sums of gold and silver.
Those are the character's combat power ratings. This subject has recently been planning a martial arts epic called Battle Through the Heavens. The numbers above are due chi values.
Enough. Guards, drag him out and execute him.
Hold on.
How dare a common woman barge into the court?
This common woman has crucial evidence to present concerning the royal family's honor. I beg your Majesty to dismiss the attendants. This is the movement trajectory of Commander Wei Xiao and Miss Cui Wan, an overlap chart, and an analysis of the pregnancy, preserving medicine flow from the Imperial Medical Bureau.
What sorcery is this?
This is statistics. Data does not lie. Is this true? Your Majesty, summon an Imperial physician to check Cui Wan's pulse, and you'll know. It has been 3 months. No matter how you try to hide it, it can't be concealed. Your Majesty, you wanted me, Shen Shixing, to be the scapegoat, to raise a child for the Wei family. Isn't that just too much of an insult?
A disgrace to the family. Indeed.
This subject is a man of decency and does not wish to push things to the extreme. As long as your Majesty retracts the decree and guarantees no further meddling in this subject's family affairs, this subject can bury this data deep within.
Granted.
A storm dissolved into nothing. Cui Wan died of illness, but was actually sent to the family shrine. Wei Xiao was transferred to the frontier. Prime Minister Cui retired and returned to his hometown. My father was reinstated to his original post and received quite a few rewards. That evening, the 3 of us, our family, had hot pot in the courtyard. Dad, you're really amazing. This big data adultery trap was absolutely brilliant.
It is not that I'm amazing. It is that they were too greedy. They wanted both power and money, and couldn't control their baser urges. People like that wouldn't last 3 episodes in a TV drama.
All right, don't get cocky. This time was just sheer luck. If you hadn't found that information, what would you have done?
Haha. If I hadn't found it, then I would have had to use that other move.
What move?
Tell the whole world. I won't. But this matter isn't over yet. Although the Empress Dowager compromised for now, she must hate me to the core. Our days in the capital from now on, I'm afraid, will be even harder.
What is there to fear? At worst, I'll resign and will return to Jiangnian. I have money. I can support you.
Living off my wife. That is my ultimate dream. Who? It seems some people are getting restless. Nong Nong. It seems your childhood is destined to be anything but peaceful.
Life seemed to return to normal, but I knew undercurrents were swirling. Just a few days later, a nursery rhyme began circulating in the capital. The Shen family's daughter, born a phoenix. Whoever wins her wins the realm.
Who the hell started this rumor? This is pushing Nong Nong straight into a fire pit. Ah.
Dad, am I a phoenix? I don't look like one. I look like a little tiger.
You're a phoenix, my ass. This is killing with flattery. The Empress Dowager's move to kill with a borrowed knife is vicious.
Sure enough, the very next day, Samana from the palace came again.
Congratulations, Lord Shen.
His Majesty has heard of your daughter's exceptional intelligence. She is specially selected to enter the palace as study companion to the eldest princess, and if she does not go,
that would be defying an imperial decree. Lord Shen, surely you would not wish for the previous incident to repeat itself. This time, there is no second Cui Wan for you to seize upon.
I am a transmigrator, and also a father. Yet, at this moment, I cannot protect my own daughter.
Dad, I'll go. It is all right. Mom, I'm going to the palace. I can help Dad keep an eye on that little emperor. Besides, Dad has taught me so much modern knowledge. Inside the palace, it is not certain who will bully whom.
Nong Nong, this is a miniature sleeve dart. Press this button, and it will fire. It only has 3 shots. Remember, if someone tries to harm you, ignore all the rules, ignore imperial authority, and shoot straight for his vitals.
Dad, this is
for saving your life. Dad, as long as you live. If anyone dares to lay a finger on you, Dad will punch a hole right through the sky of this great Liang dynasty.
And so I entered the palace. The guiding eunuch was Zhang Dehai. Old witch Empress Dowager Shen Nong has arrived. I was brought to the Chongwen Hall. This place is, in truth, the Imperial Academy.
So this is the Shen family's child prodigy.
Replying to the Grand Tutor, this student Shen Ling is 5 years old this year.
I hear your father does not teach you the 4 books and 5 classics. Now that you have entered the palace, this old man shall pose a question to test you. If a man borrows 10 taels of silver at 1% monthly interest, compounding, how much must he repay after 3 years?
The children below all began clicking their abacuses, a cacophony of clacking sounds filling the air. Grand Tutor, this problem requires no calculation.
Why?
Because anyone who borrows such money won't live 3 years. This kind of compounding interest, a snowballing debt, triples in a year and becomes dozens of times the principal in 3 years. The debtor will either sell their children or hang themselves. So this debt is a bad one.
This. What kind of reasoning is this?
It is called risk control. My father says lending without checking collateral or repayment ability is just acting like a rogue. Grand Tutor, am I right? A soft laugh came from the corner. It was the young emperor, Zhao Heng.
You're clever. I'll give you that.
The first class ended. It was time for the midday meal. Everyone ate in a side hall. The imperial cuisine was exquisite, but bland and light. The eldest princess, Zhaohua, led a few girls over.
Hey, Shenling, I heard your father married into the family. Doesn't that make you a wild brat?
Princess, my father says marrying in is brave, done for true love, not like you all, who can't eat this or that. How dull life must be.
What are you eating? It smells awful. This is a spicy strip.
Eating it can make you prettier, and smarter too. Too bad, I'm the only one who has any.
Hey, let me try some.
No. Unless you trade me that jade pendant for it.
Hey. Oh. So numbing and spicy. I have a jade hairpin here. Trade with me first. I have a jade hairpin. I'd like to try some too.
Your Majesty, this one's on the house.
My treat. Cough cough. So spicy, but really satisfying. Take this as a gift in return.
Deal. The afternoon lesson was zither practice. While Zhaohua was playing, she deliberately jerked her elbow back, knocking over the teacup. Scalding tea splashed toward my face. I was already on guard. I tilted my head and dodged it. The tea soaked the hem of my skirt.
Oops, my hand slipped. Shenling, are you alright? Your skirt is wet. This is cloud brocade, you know. How dare you wear it?
I took a deep breath, and I began my performance. Elder Princess Sister, it is all Nong Nong's fault. Nong Nong was sitting too close. It doesn't matter if the skirt is wet, but if your highness's hand had been scalded, how heartbroken Her Majesty, the Empress Dowager, would be. Elder Princess Sister, you didn't get burned, did you? Should we summon the imperial physician?
Elder Princess, Miss Shen is so thoughtful. Your slipping hand was remarkably well timed.
Wow, you have gone too far.
Imperial brother. She was the one.
We saw everything. Wipe it off. You are our invited guest. Anyone who bullies you slaps our face.
I stayed in the palace for 3 days. I kept observing Zhao Heng the entire time. The young emperor, Zhao Heng, lived a very hard life, harder than I had ever imagined. The Empress Dowager held all the power. He was nothing but a puppet. Even taking one extra bite of food would be stopped by Zhang Dehai. On the evening of the 4th day, I slipped out of the Chongwen Institute. I got lost among the rockery hills. By chance, I discovered a hidden cave deep within the rockery. I peeked inside. Zhao Heng was slashing at a straw dummy with a wooden sword. Wood. The dummy had names like Cui Wan and Lai pinned to it. He was drenched in sweat, his eyes fierce and ruthless.
Who is there? Come out.
Your Majesty, spare me. I'm just a passerby. I happened to pick a few plums from the back garden. Please, don't mistake me for an assassin and cut me down. Hehe. If you want to kill people, practicing moves like this won't work.
They all deserve to die. They want to starve us to death. They want to depose us and replace us with a more obedient puppet.
Your Majesty, killing alone won't solve the problem. And this wild hacking style of yours, it can only cut down straw dummies. My father once wrote a memorial about water conservancy projects. Have you read it? When water comes, if you only think of using dikes to block it, the water builds up higher and higher, and in the end, the dike will collapse. People will die. It is just like your anger right now, bottled up inside your heart. Sooner or later, it will explode. You have to channel it, divert the water away, guide it to where it needs to go. It can even irrigate the farmland. Dealing with those people is the same. You can't meet force with force. You have to make them fight each other, divide their power. This is called using their strength against them.
So that is how it is. Shen Nung Nung, you really know a lot.
I don't, but my father does. Your Majesty, would you like to learn some real skills? Skills that can save your life and seize power.
I would.
Let's set up an underground tutoring class. I'll be the liaison. Pass the problems along. Let my old man write the answers. Fortune favors the bold, right?
Dear.
The peaceful days didn't last long. The Empress Dowager made her move. This time, it was aimed at taking a life. Early morning, Zhang Dihai brought the Imperial Guard to search my room. Eunuch Shang, what is the meaning of this?
Someone has reported that within the Chongwen Institute, someone is practicing sorcery and black magic. Caught with the damning evidence. Take her away.
I was thrown into the repentance chamber. It was dark and damp in here, with only rats for company. I wasn't panicked. I opened the brocade pouch my father gave me before entering the palace. Inside was only a single slip of paper.
No matter who frames you, you must insist it was the person who reported you.
Old man, you're completely unreasonable, but I like it.
Shen Ling, confess. Who put you up to this?
Ha ha ha. Sir, this doll isn't mine. I saw Eunuch Zhang that night, secretly stuffing it under my bed.
Nonsense. Eunuch Zhang is the Empress Dowager's man.
Precisely because he is her man, it was easy for him to do it that day. I also heard Eunuch Zhang muttering to himself, saying if the Empress Dowager were to fall, he could take the money and run. He also said, as long as he got me killed, he could frame the Shen family and collect a huge reward.
You're spouting venomous lies.
I have proof. That day, when Eunuch Shang was hiding the doll, I smelled a unique fragrance on him. Exactly the same as the box of ambergris missing from the Empress Dowager's palace. Something indeed went missing from the Empress Dowager's palace. That is confidential. Truth is, I didn't know. I was just taking a gamble. Zhang Dihai has sticky fingers. This matter involves the Empress Dowager's favorite. He wouldn't dare not investigate. Once the investigation starts, other things will come to light. Sure enough, the matter reached the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager may hate me, but she hates betrayal even more. In the end, they found a hoard of gold, silver, and secret correspondence. Zhang Dihai was still beaten to death with rods because of my youth and ignorance, and Zhao Heng's desperate pleas on my behalf. I was punished by copying books. When I walked out of the interrogation room, Zhao Heng was waiting for me at the door.
We thought we would never see you again.
Don't worry, a disaster lives 1,000 years. Ha ha ha. But I knew. This round was only a narrow victory. I lingered at the Chongwen Institute for a few more days, doing nothing but eating and sleeping all day. That night, the moon was dark and the wind was high. I was leaning on the windowsill, counting stars, when suddenly I heard a faint clicking sound. A wooden, automaton bird flew crookedly through the window. Tucked inside the wooden bird's belly was a note. I pried out the note. On the back was written a line of text.
Mu Zhuang, my girl. Your old man has already been stirring things up outside. The phoenix rumor I spread was only the second half. The first half is, when the phoenix lands on the Shen family, disaster is sure to follow. To avert this, she must be raised away from home.
Since I'm going to be a jinx, I might as well be the biggest one. I'll turn this imperial palace upside down. The next day, I went to find Zhao Heng. Your Majesty, would you like to sneak out of the palace for some good food?
Forget it. The Empress Dowager watches too closely. We can't even step out of this gate.
What if there were a plague in the palace?
What are you planning? Don't do anything rash. People could die.
It is not a real plague. It is fake. This is lacquer tree powder my old man got. Just a tiny bit on your skin, and you'll break out in red rashes. It looks just like smallpox. Hehe. Actually, it is just an allergic reaction. Drink some mung bean soup, take a bath, and you'll be fine.
You mean,
As long as your majesty falls ill, and it is a contagious disease, the Empress Dowager is so terrified of death, she'll definitely send you to the summer palace for quarantine. Then, with the emperor far away, we can do whatever we want.
Let's do it.
That very afternoon, Zhao Heng collapsed in the court, his face covered in red blotches. The imperial physicians were terrified. No one dared make a definite diagnosis, only calling it an acute illness. Right after I fell ill too, with the exact same symptoms, rumors spread like wildfire. The Empress Dowager was suspicious, but she didn't dare gamble with the emperor's life, let alone risk her own. So, Zhao Heng and I were bundled up and shipped out of the palace.
No unauthorized personnel allowed near. Seal the summer palace gates.
We finally got out. Nung Nung, is this the scent of freedom?
This is the scent of the mortal world, sweet. The western suburb summer palace was remote. With lax security, everyone was afraid of catching it, so they kept their distance. That night, my old man actually snuck in. Dad.
Oh, my little ancestor, have you gotten thinner? So this must be His Majesty. A pleasure, a pleasure. I'm Shen Shixing, this girl's old man, and your future business partner.
Minister Shen, I have long admired your esteemed name. Thank you for your disguise.
Cut the formalities. Tonight, we only talk about food and drink.
From his bundle, he pulled out sliced mutton, tripe, and duck blood. That night's hot pot was the most delicious meal I've ever had. As father blanched the tripe, he shared some wisdom with Zhao Heng.
Tonight, let's set aside ruler and subject. Let's just talk as elder and younger. This is called team building. It strengthens the team's cohesion. Your Majesty, look at this hot pot. All kinds of ingredients are cooked together. If you don't stir it, the stuff at the bottom will burn. Governing a country is the same. All factions are in this pot. You must be the one holding the ladle, never letting anyone side. What about the Empress Dowager? The Empress Dowager is the old chili pepper at the bottom of this pot. Though pungent, without her, this broth would have no flavor, and it wouldn't boil so quickly. Your task right now is to turn yourself into a block of frozen tofu. It looks soft, but it actually has great capacity. It can absorb flavors. Once it is absorbed enough, you'll be the star of this pot.
Zhao Heng listened, lost in thought. His gaze gradually grew resolute. That night, Zhao Heng laughed with abandon, like a true youth for the very first time. We were hiding away in peace at the detached palace, but outside the palace all hell had broken loose. To bring good fortune and win people over, the Empress Dowager held a flower viewing party. All the titled ladies of the capital were invited. My mother was naturally among them. She was the wealthiest woman present. It is said the scene that day was quite something. Several ministers' wives banded together, trying to squeeze my mother out.
Oh my, isn't this Boss Jiang? I hear your husband, Minister Shen, is pushing new policies lately, planning to give land to those muddy-legged peasants, born of merchant stock, just so short-sighted, no sense of propriety.
My husband, Old Shen, is working to fill the national treasury. It is all for the foundation of the Great Liang dynasty. But I've heard that the river transport under your husband's charge
runs a deficit year after year.
How about this? I'll send my family's accountant to help you check the books.
Free of charge. Oh, by the way, that shop your family owns in Tengzhou still owes the Jiang family bank 30,000 taels, doesn't it?
That lady's face instantly turned green. She couldn't even fan herself anymore. Just then, the Empress Dowager arrived. She looked at my mother, her gaze complex, with a hint of scrutiny.
Lady Jiang, we have heard you visited many girls' schools in Jiangnan.
In reply to your Majesty, yes, I did. This humble woman believes that a woman's virtue lies in ignorance, is nothing but a deceitful lie. When a woman possesses real skills, she can better assist her husband and educate her children, and even more so, share the nation's burdens.
Heresy. Aren't you afraid such ambition will make her unruly so that no one dares to?
A wild heart simply broadens one's horizons. If your majesty had not been so bold in your youth, could you have fought your way out of the deep palaces to sit upon that throne?
Your temperament. It reminds us of our younger self. It is a pity you were not born into the imperial family. The world might have taken a different shape. Very well. A reward.
I thank your majesty for your boundless grace.
Our days at the traveling palace were fleeting. Half a month later, the red spots on Zhao Heng and me had faded. The Empress Dowager ordered us back to the palace. On the journey back, Zhao Heng remained very silent. I watched this boy, his childishness gradually fading, and felt a bit of comfort in my heart. What is wrong?
No. Once we return this time, we can no longer hide behind you all. Minister Shen was right. We must become that block of frozen tofu.
But tofu still needs to be firm. Otherwise, it'll fall apart the moment it is boiled. Back at the palace, the atmosphere had indeed shifted. The Empress Dowager seemed to have sensed something and began frequently reshuffling the Imperial Guard. My father also came under fiercer attacks at court. Impeachments were filed against him every single day. One night, I was jolted awake by frantic knocking. It was Xiao Linzi, the young eunuch serving Zhao Heng.
Hurry! His Majesty has been placed under house arrest. The Empress Dowager is forcing him to issue an edict to make Prince Rong's heir succeed the throne.
Depose the emperor. The Empress Dowager had finally shown her hand. She found Zhao Heng too difficult to control and wanted to swap in a smaller, more pliable puppet. This was serious. A coup d'etat. Where is my father?
The minister just stormed the palace with his men, but they're trapped at the Meridian Gate.
I rushed to my bedside and pulled a heavy cloth bundle from a hidden compartment. Inside was flour and several jars of chili powder. This was the physics and chemistry lesson my father had taught me. Let's go rescue the emperor. Tonight, the sky over the great Liang dynasty is going to get a hole punched through it by me. Shen Nong Nong. A moonless night. Perfect for dirty deeds. Lead the way. The palace was in chaos. Torches and battle cries were everywhere. The Empress Dowager had gone all in, deploying the entire elite Imperial Guard. We evaded 2 patrol squads and crept our way to a side hall of the Palace of Heavenly Purity. The main gate was tightly shut. 2 guards, built like iron towers, stood at the entrance.
Miss Shen, those are the Empress Dowager's death warriors. They kill without blinking.
No problem. I'll make them blink with tears. Hen. Special delivery.
Ah.
Cut the chatter. Run.
But where do we go from here?
The whole area reeks of chili powder now. That'll keep them busy.
We definitely can't get out that way.
Who said anything about using the door?
What is this?
It is the palace sewage drain. It leads straight to the moat outside.
This is absolutely filthy.
It is a way out. If Zhao Heng dies here, he is a martyr. Only by surviving can he remain the emperor. At the exit, a massive wooden cart for hauling slop and night soil was parked, dead.
Sheesh. Quiet, someone's coming. Get in.
Look, here is the thing.
Your Majesty, what matters more, your life or your pride? Han Xin endured the humiliation of crawling between legs. King Gujian of US slept on brushwood and tasted gall. If you can't even stomach this, then you might as well give up the throne.
Halt. What is your business here?
Officer, it is just some foul waste. We didn't want it to offend the nobles, so we're hauling it out under cover of darkness.
Get lost. Get out of here. What rotten luck.
Amidst that nauseating stench, we made our escape. In the darkness, I took Zhao Heng's hand. I realized he'd stopped trembling. I knew then that the young emperor raised in a greenhouse had perished inside that barrel. What emerged alive was a true avenger. We fled under cover of night all the way to the Western Hills. At the foot of the Western Hills stood a vast estate. It was the Shen family's property, known as the Institute of Practical Inquiry, ostensibly a paper mill. It was actually my father's research base. The moment we dismounted, Zhao Heng rushed to the riverbank and vomited violently.
Your Majesty, once you've finished throwing up, we'll get to work.
A deep moat had been dug around the estate's perimeter. Sandbags were piled high atop the walls. Hundreds of men in work uniforms, armed with spears, stood in orderly formation. This is no factory. It is clearly a fortress. Dad, are you planning a rebellion?
What nonsense, this is to protect intellectual property.
We had just entered the estate when wolf smoke rose from the direction of the capital. The Empress Dowager had discovered the Emperor was missing. The bells signaling a citywide lockdown began to toll. Dad stood atop the watchtower, gazing at the distant flames, his eyes sharp and piercing.
The Empress Dowager must know by now that His Majesty has escaped. Since she wants to play rough, we'll play along.
Old Shen, I've already spoken with the capital's silver shops. All exchange services will cease tomorrow morning. The grain barges and coal carts bound for the capital have also been halted at Tengzhou. I've severed every supply chain. Within 3 days, the capital will become a dead city.
Auntie Jiang, what are you?
This is commercial warfare, without money or grain. Let's see how the Empress Dowager feeds her troops.
The defense of the Juwu Institute had begun. The Empress Dowager mobilized 3,000 imperial guards and surrounded the estate. Leading them was a General Wang, who stood there cursing, brandishing the Empress Dowager's decree.
Shen Shixing, hand over the rebels, or we'll raise this shabby manor of yours.
General Wang, save your breath. Doesn't your throat hurt? Those brothers, under your command, have they been paid their military wages this month?
Cut the crap.
I've heard the Empress Dowager diverted the military funds to build her garden. Brothers, is the Empress Dowager feeding you moldy rice mixed with sand? I've got braised pork over here, and fresh steamed buns, plus hard silver.
In an instant, the soldiers below began to stir. Some were secretly swallowing their saliva.
Deceitful lies. Loose arrows.
Activate the defenses.
There were no cannons on the wall. The workers rolled out several large vats and splashed a black liquid outward. It was from the skunk pool. Father fermented it from rotting entrails. It was unbelievably foul. The soldiers outside were gagging from the stench, barely able to hold their bows. Right after that, the workers poured large amounts of grease on the ground. The soldiers trying to charge forward slipped, tumbling into a tangled heap. The Imperial Guard retreated. They hadn't wanted to fight in the first place, and now their morale was completely gone.
Is this the power of studying things to gain knowledge?
It is chemical warfare and physical warfare. They had repelled the first wave of attack, but the situation remained dire. The Empress Dowager had suppressed all news, publicly claiming the Emperor was ill. With Prince Rong's heir acting as regent, Prince Rong had mobilized 50,000 troops from the north, now marching toward the capital.
The situation was critical. The Empress Dowager had suppressed all news. Prince Rong's massive army was closing in. We cannot just sit here waiting to die. We must find a sliver of hope in this deadlocked game. The capital may be a dragon's pool and a tiger's den, but it is also the key to victory or defeat. We must seize the initiative and strike, but we absolutely cannot use brute force. As the art of war says, attacking the mind is paramount. Since Prince Rong has a great army, we shall gift him a battle he cannot avoid, a war of public opinion.
How do we fight it? Distribute newspapers.
Newspapers are for the rich and the educated. The common folk can't read. Newspapers are useless. We must use a method they know best and understand most clearly.
That very evening, storytellers appeared in tea houses and taverns across the capital. They told tales of a wicked mother-in-law imprisoning her own grandson. Beggars and children on the streets began to sing a new nursery rhyme. The old hag sits on the golden throne, seeking the true dragon. She schemes for power alone. She feasts on birds' nests, draped in silk so fine, caring not that the people have no rice to dine. Meanwhile, the Jiang family's opera troupe set up a stage outside the city walls. They performed an adaptation of The Cat Swapped for a Prince. insinuating that the Empress Dowager intended to prop up a puppet and murder the true son of heaven. The rumors spread as if they had sprouted wings, flying to every corner of the capital. Overnight, the Empress Dowager's reputation was utterly ruined. Even soldiers in the Imperial Guard began to whisper among themselves, feeling they were aiding a tyrant in her evil deeds. Inside the palace, the Empress Dowager was so enraged, she smashed her favorite roux tea set. Alas, stopping people's mouth is harder than stopping a flood. She can arrest their bodies, but she cannot arrest their hearts. The effects of the economic blockade began to show. The price of rice in the capital soared tenfold. Coal had a price, but no market supply. Winter was approaching. Without coal, the nobles in the capital shivered with cold. But the Institute of Juwu was bustling with intense activity. My father started a communal kitchen, with meat served at every meal. Those workers and guards who had been wavering now couldn't be driven away. Zhao Heng had changed too. He pushed carts and carried bricks alongside the workers. His hands grew calloused. His face became sun-darkened, but the light in his eyes grew ever brighter. That evening, he and I sat on the rooftop, gazing at the stars.
Nong Nong. We once believed that governing the realm was merely reviewing memorials and balancing the power of the ministers. Only now does it dawn on us that the realm is made of these living, breathing people, each and every one. All they want is simple things. A bowl of hot food, a warm coat, a fair shake. If I can't even give them that, then I truly am a pathetic excuse for an emperor.
Your Majesty, you've become quite perceptive. Dad calls it coming from the masses and going back to the masses.
Minister Shen is truly a man of great talent. Once I reclaim my throne, I will certainly appoint him as...
No, my dad's dream is to retire and be a total slacker. Don't put him through that. Besides, you've got to get past this hurdle first. I pointed into the distance. The faint sound of hoofbeats came from the darkness. Prince Rong's army of 50,000 has arrived. The moment of the final battle has come sooner than expected. The first day standoff was extremely tense. Prince Rong's forces set up trebuchets outside, but Dad wouldn't let anyone shoot arrows. He just had them keep broadcasting with the loudspeakers.
Are those Prince Rong's troops over there? We heard you've been on a forced march. You haven't eaten yet, have you? We're stewing meat over here right now. Smells amazing.
As the words were broadcast, several large cauldrons were set up on the city wall. They fanned the flames, and the aroma of red braised pork drifted downwind. The opposing soldiers' stomachs rumbled in a chorus. Prince Rong was furious and frantic.
Attack. 10,000 taels of silver to whoever takes the estate.
The soldiers steeled themselves and charged forward, but what met them wasn't a rain of arrows, but countless glass marbles.
Don't fight. We're all on the same side. Prince Rong wants to rebel. Do you all want to lose your heads along with him? The Emperor is right here. Who dares to make a move? That would be regicide.
I am the son of heaven of great Liang, Zhao Han. Those who lay down their weapons, I pardon you all.
The soldiers froze, but no one moved, because Mother had cut off Prince Rong's supply line. Prince Rong's logistics officer had just rushed in to report that the provisions had been seized, with no supplies at all, and facing the true Emperor's army, who still had the heart to fight. The next morning, the situation completely reversed. It didn't feel like a battle. It was more like a massive family reunion. Common folk from all over carrying steamed buns and eggs rushed toward Prince Rong's army.
Son, stop fighting. Come home. Prince Rong is staging a rebellion. Heaven will punish him.
The commoners moved through the military camp, offering food and drink. Prince Rong's soldiers, also from humble origins, looked at these elders as if seeing their own parents. They simply couldn't bring themselves to swing their blades.
Lay down your weapons. We don't kill our own.
Scores of soldiers threw down their arms, sat on the ground, ate buns, and wept, seeing the cause was lost. Prince Rong mounted his horse to flee, but that deputy commander who had long harbored disloyalty shot him off his horse with an arrow.
Hump, I've had my eye on you for a long time. You owe me 3 months' pay. Just like that, the 50,000 strong army crumbled.
We had won, a bafflingly easy victory, no rivers of blood. After resting for half a day, we set out for the capital. This time, Zhao Heng rode on horseback, leading the way. There was no need to storm the city. When the capital's garrison saw the yellow dragon banner, they simply opened the gates. The people lined the streets to welcome us, shouting, "Long live the Emperor," and also "Lord Shen the Just," but my dad hid inside the carriage.
Too much limelight makes you a target. This is the time to let the Emperor bask in glory. We'll just quietly make our fortune.
Coward.
The procession moved forward without any hindrance, straight to the imperial palace. The palace gates were wide open. Those eunuchs and palace maids, once so arrogant, were now kneeling all over the ground. We walked along the long imperial path and arrived before the Hall of Supreme Harmony. The great hall was empty, except for the Empress Dowager, alone in her formal court attire, seated upright on the phoenix chair.
So you have come. Royal grandmother, stop this. Stop? Ha 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 ha. In this life, I outmaneuvered the late emperor's favored consorts, outmaneuvered the grand chancellor who held sway over the court. I never imagined. In the end, I would lose to a cook and a merchant woman. Shen Shixing, what exactly are you?
In reply to your majesty, this humble subject is just an ordinary man who wants a warm home with his wife and children. It was you who insisted on shattering my peaceful life.
An ordinary man, indeed. Do you think this is victory? Even in death, I will drag you all down with me.
This is bad. Retreat quickly. Cover your mouths and noses. Stay low.
Why did you save me?
Because I do not wish to become someone like you. Times have changed.
The Empress Dowager was placed under house arrest in the Palace of Longevity and Health. From then on, she observed a vegetarian diet and chanted Buddhist sutras, never again involving herself in political affairs. Zhao Heng assumed personal rule. His first act was to promulgate the 10 new policies, whose core idea was my dad's concept of enriching the people and strengthening the nation. As for my dad, he declined the high position of Grand Chancellor. Dad wrote in his letter of resignation, Your Majesty.
Your Majesty, the world is so vast. I wish to see it.
Zhao Heng had no choice. He granted my father the title of Prince of Leisure. He granted my mother the title of first-rank Imperial Mandate Lady. He granted me the title of Princess of National Peace. But our family remained just the same as before. No grand princely estate, just the warmth of hearth and home. 3 years later, at the coronation ceremony, Zhao Heng, dressed in dragon robes, stood atop the high sacrificial altar. The masses bowed in worship, their cries of "Long live your majesty" echoing like thunder. His gaze pierced through the layers of the crowd and landed on a corner, where my father, my mother, and I were hiding, cracking melon seeds. Our eyes met across the distance. He smiled faintly and reached to touch the slightly worn green jade pendant at his waist. I smiled too, and touched the cloth tiger hanging at my own waist. After the grand ceremony ended, Zhao Heng came to our home in plain clothes. In the courtyard, I was jumping rope with a group of kids. Big Yellow had grown old, lying under the eaves and basking in the sun. My father was tinkering with his new invention, a wooden pedal cart.
Wife, come quick and see. This thing can actually move.
Careful you don't throw out your old back.
Ouch.
Ha 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 ha. Zhao Heng stood at the gate watching this scene. His eyes were full of gentleness.
Your Majesty, why have you come again? Don't you have official documents to deal with?
Zhao Heng greeted us casually, then walked up to me. He was carrying a box of pastries.
These are cream puffs, a new creation from the Imperial Kitchen. Have a taste.
Not bad, but a little worse than my father's.
Uncle Shen, I came today because I have a question to ask you. That theory of monogamy you once spoke of, can it be implemented in the imperial family?
The courtyard fell silent. My father and mother exchanged a glance, their faces breaking into knowing, doting smiles. Well, I nearly choked on the cream puff.
Your Majesty, this subject taught you to investigate things and clarify rights for the sake of the common people. As for matters of the heart, it depends on whether you can keep the promise made in your heart.
We can keep it.
As for the future, who cares? There are many days ahead. As long as there is good food and family around, any place can be a good life.